Well, we're just going to start. I know there's still people coming in. I'm not going to, you can leave it open if you want. This is going to be pretty, I hope it does not feel too formal. I have some thoughts that I'm going to share. I hope to do it fairly quickly so we can even have some time afterwards to chat a bit. And also, if you have thoughts or comments along the way, you're welcome to stop me and we can talk about kind of whatever you want. The idea, what I have proposed that we talk about, unless you say otherwise, is doing a better job of designing apps and tools with educators and getting educator feedback. And so I'm going to share some things that are going on in this space. I'm going to share some things that ISTE is doing. Bart, who's sitting right here, knows like 10 times more about this stuff than I do. So if you ask a really hard question, I'm just going to pull him up. But we'll share some things that we have going on. So first of all, just real quick, I'm going to do they told me I might have to like hold it up high and do it. There you go. The quick overview of what ISTE is, for those of you who aren't familiar. How many of you are already familiar with ISTE? Okay, so good. So then I will do this super quick. It's interesting because a lot of people, when I go around, I say, hey, what's ISTE? And they're like, oh, you're a great conference. And I'm like, yes, and that's actually just one small piece of what we do. And so I want to just make sure you're aware of some of the things that we have going on in case it's helpful. First, there's sort of three areas that we work on. One is helping to set a vision for how to use technology for learning. Click. How about I just like say next? We'll do it that way. And so one of the ways, go ahead, next. One of the ways that we do it is through the ISTE Standards. Carolyn right here actually leads all of our standards work. And we've just been through this multi-year process, almost to the end of it, of updating all of the standards. And they're pretty awesome. And so if you haven't had a chance to look at them recently, worth going and doing that. And that's something that we make available for free. It's sort of our gift to the world. And the idea is to say, this is a vision for what we're trying to do with all this technology. Because I am in so many conversations where I get those calls and it's like, hey, we just bought a bunch of iPads. What are we going to do, right? And at that point, I cry. I don't know. Like, what do you want to do? So part of what we're trying to do is say, hey, let's decide what it is that we're trying to do. What's our vision? What's our goalpost? And then based on that, let's figure out how to use the technology. So that's one of the reasons that we have the standards. We even have standards in yoga form. Next. Yoga form, if you want, that you can check. We have one of our offices is in Portland, and so we get stuff like yoga standards out of that, so that's kind of fun. And then go ahead, next one. This is a different slide than I thought, but that's okay. Another project that we have going on, I think I may have had a hidden slide in there, but another project that I have going on is a project called Seal of Alignment, which is an opportunity where anybody can bring tools or apps that they've built, and they can bring them in, and we have a team that will actually review them and see if they are lined up against the standards, which is pretty awesome. And so you have some groups like do I have a picture of that on here? Sorry, we're having a little issues. I was expecting to plug in my laptop, so I had a bunch of things I was going to show you live. And so really quickly, I caught some screenshots, and I tried to make it work, but there may be a few things where it's a little bit smoke and mirrors. But there's a bunch of groups that have gone through that project. One of them, Google's Be Internet Awesome, just went through. And so there's a bunch of projects that we look at and help to align them. So that's what we do on the standard side. The next thing that we work on is community. Clicky. Community, click, is where we do a good job. Go ahead. Next. Thanks. We pull educators together, and we provide communities for them to connect and collaborate online. And this is important because I'll tell you, having been a teacher, one of the things that most struck me when I first walked into the classroom was how lonely it was. How by myself I was, with a bunch of kids who were exciting and all that, but that was very different than somebody that I could have as a peer. And so we have these communities created so that teachers can jump in, they can ask questions, they can say, hey, how the heck do I teach this thing? And they get a whole bunch of input and feedback from all around the country. I'm going to go like, yeah, there you go, he got it that time. I'm going to snap, that'll be how I do it from now on. Then I have to say next, right? We're working this out. This is iterative design right here. Okay, so this is just an example of one of our of one of the communities, and just to kind of get a sense of what that looks like. Okay, so the next thing that we do is we have a team that works on providing learning opportunities for educators and leaders. And of course, one of those is our big conference, which you're probably aware of, and we're having that in Chicago this year, and you're welcome to come join. It'll be awesome. But we also have a series of other smaller events that we do, and we provide a whole series of, we have peer-reviewed journals, we have books that we publish, and most excitingly, we just launched some online learning opportunities. This is a new one. This one's actually not even released yet, so I'm showing you something that's in beta. And by the way, I'm going to show several things here that are in the works. So I'm doing that as a heads up because I want you to see kind of where we're going. But if on a couple of these, if you're like, I want to do that today, it might be like next week, but it's coming, okay? So this is one of them. We went around, we said, what do we need to be talking about? And we saw that there is no teacher training program for AI that exists. And we have countries, my chief learning officer just came back from China and met with the higher ed, the minister of higher ed for China. In China, over the next 5 years, they are creating 5 higher ed institutions completely focused on AI. Right? So 5 essentially, 30. Did I say 5? 30. Over 5 years, 30 institutions, higher ed institutions, just focused on AI. Whoa. So I heard Ted Dintersmith in here a second ago, and he was like, yeah, they're not missing the beat on this. He is not kidding. Like, they are seriously not missing the beat on this. And you walk into our schools and we're like, AI, that's that thing that's going to take my job, right? Right, like it's shocking, and I sort of say it jokingly, but it is absolutely no joke. And so one of the things that we did in partnership with GM, because GM is saying, look, all of our cars that we're making, they're pretty much driving AI machines at this point, and we can't hire anybody that knows how to do what we need to do with it. And so this is a course for teachers to go in and say, what do you need to know about teaching the basics of AI in your class? And we step them through how to make like a basic chat bot. It's awesome. And it gives them, we're not going to walk out of here programming the next General Motors car, but you're going to walk out with the skills that you need to basically have this sense of what this means, and then you can build on those skills as you get into additional learning opportunities. So those are the things that we got going on. Okay, so what's the problem? So the problem that we are running into, at least that we're going to talk about for a minute here today, is the fact that as we wander around the halls of this building, so many of the tools and apps that are being built without input from educators. So real quick, just so I know some of you in the room, but how many of you are actually build apps or products of some sort that you provide to teachers? Awesome, great. While we're at it, how many of you are in an actual in a school role, leader or, yeah, great. Who's in the other category? Got it. What do you do? Yep. Oh, okay, good.
Online resource.
Okay, that sounds fun. Anybody else? Who's in the other category there? Yeah. What's that? Oh, apps for kids. Great, awesome. Okay, so this issue that we see is we build all these great apps, but they often do not take advantage of teacher feedback. And I was talking to somebody once about this, and they said, well, what's the problem? What's the big deal? I said, let me see if I can explain it to you. I back up and say, I'm not a very smart guy, so sometimes like simple drawings and pictures help me understand complex concepts. So I said, let me try to draw it for you. So here we go. I said, this is a teacher's life. They pull out their phone, and it looks and feels like this. They go to their web browser, and it looks and feels like this. And then they go to their gradebook or their tool that they're using for their LMS or what have you, and it looks like that. Right? I just took a screenshot right off of a teacher that I was working with. In fact, I was in a school not that long ago, and we had a teacher, they were complaining about these dinosaur teachers, right? These curmudgeon old teachers, they don't know how to do anything, right? And I was like, really? Let's go watch. I was like, yeah, because every time they go to do it, they click and they log out, and okay, let's watch. So we have this teacher who, fair, was messing it all up and logging out and all this sort of stuff. And then there was a break, and I watched the teacher walk over and pick out her phone and bid for something on eBay and update something on Facebook, right? I said, wait a minute. Those two tasks that we just saw that teacher do are way more complicated than entering in a grade on that assessment. And so I'm not entirely sure that the problem is just with the teacher. So I said, let's go talk to the teacher. So I talked to the teacher and I said, what's going on? They said, well, this app, I hit the back button, it logs out. I have to do this password 3 times because the passwords don't sync, and there's these weird pop-up menus, and I have to have this XML format thing. And the app developer goes, well, we gotta fix that in PD. We cannot use PD as a cop-out for bad design. Cannot happen. Not a good enough excuse. And I'm sure nobody in this room that's building tools and apps has that problem, but so many are like that. And one of the things that we, just think about, like imagine if you're eBay, right? And you're like, well, we'll just send everybody through PD before they can use it. Maybe like a tutorial that they take for like 10 or 20 hours to not hit the back button. Or you could just make the back button work, right? So these are some of the things that we run into, and they're the things that we get. They're symptoms of not having teachers involved in the design process. So, involving educators. First, I will say there are some great things that are happening, but you do have to be a little bit careful. There are some lines that you can trip across, especially here in the US, around some ethics rules that we need to be careful of. And so what I'm going to do is I'll try to highlight some of those, show some things that are working, and then some of the things that we're trying to do at ISTE to try to make this a little bit better. So, what are your options? First, the App Store rating feedback. That's one way that often we use to get input and feedback from teachers. How's it going? And I've just tried to put the pros and cons up there. The pros is you don't have to do anything. If you can like find the app that you've built on the website, on Google Play or Apple iTunes or whatever what store it is, you just look it up, right? That's easy. But there's some pretty major cons. The one con is the product is already created. So if you're actually trying to build a product with educator input, it's sort of a little too late to do the 4-star thing. The other problem, and this is the really big one that people often forget, is it completely ignores context. So when you see a 5-star rating or a 3-star, whatever it is, let's say it's a 3-star rating, you could go, oh, it's a mediocre app. Well, it turns out it's not a mediocre app. It's actually a 5-star app if you use it with English language learners in high school, right? And it's a 0-star app if you use it with like early childhood kids out of context. But when it shows up like that, you're like, oh, 3-star, right? Context is incredibly important. Anybody who knows anything about education knows that context is incredibly important. And so this sort of ignores that. So those are some of the challenges there. Next is doing the teacher cadre. So there are groups that pull together a group of teachers, a team of teachers, that just give them input and feedback along the way. Pros are great feedback. You get feedback prior to launch. The problem is it's hard to do that if you're not a really exciting brand already. It's also expensive and can be time-consuming, but you got to be really careful with this last one. If you do that, you can run afoul of ethics rules. And if you haven't seen any of the reporting of our friend Natasha Singer from New York Times this last year, you might want to go take a look at some of that. And there are a whole bunch of examples. This title here, in case you can't read it, Silicon Valley courts brand name teachers raising ethics issues. Right? When you have a enter name here, I'll make up an app name so I don't offend anybody, Richard O app. I'm a Richard O app teacher or a Richard O app classroom, right? That is not allowed in public education. And sometimes we run afoul of that. So we got to be really careful when you use those teacher groups that you keep those tight separations. Okay, next up is built-in feedback. This is similar to the sort of rating and review thing, but it happens within your app. And again, the pros are you can improve existing experience, and it's pretty ineffective, right? You just say, hey, I'm annoyed about the screen. It doesn't have this feature. You can collect that stuff. I don't have a picture of it here, but you can also do that with some basic analytics, too. You can see when people get stuck on a particular screen, when they move on. Again, the cons are the product's already created. So if you're really trying to innovate and do new things, that's not going to help you very much. And also, it also ignores context. It gives you a little more context in the app review, right? Because you may know if they're registered with you and they have an account, you might know a little bit about them, but that's still not giving you quite what you need to know. Okay, so here's what we're trying to do. Some of the things we're trying to do at ISTE. The first thing is that we are piloting, and this is pilot. So if you can tweet this, but it's in a beta, and I'm giving you a heads up on that. We have something that we're calling the ISTE App Edtech Advisor. And the Edtech Advisor is a tool that we are piloting with our teacher community. So we have about 200,000 educators that are part of our network of teachers. And we're piloting this as a way to get feedback on apps. So if you look at this, you can go in and you can say, here's some apps. And you can look. Now, before you wait a minute, isn't this a rating tool? No. Because what we do is we have a whole bunch of questions that we ask, and it's an inventory. And so teachers will say things like, how is it being used? Is it being used for direct assessment? Is it being used for instruction? Is it being used by the student? Is it being used? So we have all this context. Plus, because ISTE members, we have context about them. We know what they are. We can tell, have they been teaching for a long time? Where are they teaching? What grades did they teach? And so you could actually get a really nice picture about what the heck is going on with these tools. And then you can even do some things like you can get some reports. You can compare one tool to the next. So there's some pretty awesome stuff going on there. OK, next. Am I going fast enough? OK, I got like 3 more minutes. OK, here we go. So the next thing, and this is so new, I don't even have like a cool picture for it. I need to like draw something. It's called Feedback Loop. And Feedback Loop is another pilot program that we're doing, which is helping to get feedback directly from teachers. And this is helpful if it's a new tool or something that you want to build out as a type of a product that is not existing yet. And so what this looks like is an app developer comes to us and says, hey, here's what I want. I want 10 8th grade English teachers in rural areas. And I want them to review and give us feedback on this particular product that we're thinking about building, or these screenshots or these mock-ups, and let us know what they think. And then what we do is ISTE brokers those connections. So you are not talking directly with educators. We're not running afoul of, and we make sure there's no sales pitch stuff in there. And then we wrap up that feedback and provide it back. And so you're able to very quickly get access to a whole bunch of teachers that you couldn't otherwise. This is important because I like to beat up on companies for not getting teacher feedback. And I was doing that once, and somebody came up to me and said, really, you want to beat up us? I said, yeah, you're not doing a good job. He said, really? You go try to do it. Oh, yeah, okay, fair. So the point is, it's actually really hard, especially if you're starting up or have new tools, to find the teachers to give that feedback. And so we help broker that information and make it available in a more easily digestible form for teachers. Those are some of the things that we're working on. Okay, let me do this. Actually, let's pause there for 1 second. We have 10 minutes left. Not quite. We have 5 minutes left. Let me pause there, and I'd love to hear what you're thinking. I know we just threw a bunch of stuff out, but how does it resonate? Do you have questions about this? Do you have other ideas for ways that you've found to get input from educators along the way? And tell me who you are. Okay.
We are a company that's illustrating English language with polygons.
Yep.
I'm just curious, what is this to be available?
We are actually piloting it right now. So if anybody's interested in being part of the beta and getting early feedback on it, the deal is we in addition to trying it out with us, we just ask for you to give us feedback along the way, and realizing that it's new and we're learning this. Nobody has ever tried to do anything like this before, at least at this scale. And so along the way, if you can help us improve what we're doing, that's part of what we're asking for. So just reach out to me afterwards, and I can give you more information. Yes.
So we're not web-based.
Yeah.
We're online. We're not an app-based.
Yeah. Yep.
Like 200,000 people a day use us, half of that is students.
Yep.
So we're building our teachers corner out in a huge way, but we're not going mobile, but we're not going app.
Yep.
So can we still take advantage of your...
Yeah, absolutely. We can talk about how to do that later. There's a number of ways that we've helped to do that as we're trying it. Sometimes it's just screenshots, and you say, hey, these are features. There's other ways. We can talk about the ways to do it. And by the way, we're learning. So if you come and you're like, hey, guess what? This actually doesn't work for me. That's helpful for us to figure out as we try to improve on this. Yeah, cool. Other comments, thoughts, feedback? Yes?
So there are platforms everywhere.
Yes.
Are you finding they're sticky? Do people actually stay when you return feedback?
I don't know. That's my honest answer. I have no idea. I'll tell you in another 6 months. What I can say is that the ISTE Educator team, they are like super ninja awesome teachers. They are the like the curve of like, super involved and then like kind of just doing the thing and then checked out. Ours are like off the charts on the super involved side. So my hope is that they will, they're the ones usually banging down my door saying, hey, can we do more? So my hope is that will be the case. But we'll learn if it's not. Yeah, and I'm getting the yellow piece of paper. So any other comments? Yes, Michelle. There is, yes, there is. Now, we're a nonprofit, and so we don't make a profit on it, but it does take time and resources, and we also do provide a credit to teachers. We reward the teachers. We don't pay them like a check because, again, to keep this all clean, but we give them a gift certificate or something just to thank them for their time, because we think it's really important that we're not taking advantage of teachers on, to make commercial products, and so, or even non-commercial products for that matter. So that is how we roll there. All right, let me do this. I want to end with a final thought, and I'll still stick around for a few more minutes, but we'll at least get cleaned out of here so that the other group can come if needed. Thank you. So here's my final thought. My final thought is, if you look at any product development, any industry, you see a product development cycle that looks something like this. There's 8 different ways that you can draw it, and you could argue about what the order is and whatever, but it looks generally something like this. You have a design experience where you come together and say, what the heck are we building? You have deployment of the thing that you're trying to do. You let it run in real life. You get feedback and evaluation of some sort, and then that drives the design process, and you have this cycle. And then if you do it really well, they add this little thing on the side there, which is research. So you're doing your normal design cycle, and then research is sort of coming in and informing it as research is updating. This is a healthy product dev cycle in pretty much all spaces. In education, this is what the product dev cycle looks like. It's like lob it off the cliff, right? It's like, imagine if you were at a restaurant and the restaurant, they kept serving food and they never asked if the food was any good. Like, is it good? I don't know. We just keep shoving it out the door. Do we know if it's healthy? I don't know. We don't know what we make it out of. We just shove it out the door. This is sort of what we have going on in education. And it is ridiculous and it is not sustainable. And so one of the things that we need to do is we need to work together, all of us, to complete this cycle, to make sure that there's this circle. So we have design, development, feedback, tied to research that informs design and build this iterative model. If we don't do that, we'll start negative first. If we don't do that, we're toast. We're toast. All this investment comes back and people just say, we have a bunch of devices, all those things that you hear. We're toast. If we can pull this off, we totally can change, honestly, can change the world. I don't mean to sound, but you really can. We have the chance to finally address through technology some of the toughest issues in education that we've just never been able to deal with before. But that's up to us. So come work with us, help us figure it out, give us ideas, help us try it, we'll make it happen. Thanks, you guys.